everybody, and welcome back to my channel, Movie Files. Elliot back again, and we are talking full spoilers for the first episode of The Falcon and Winter Soldier. Now, I did a non-spoiler review, so if you haven't seen the episode, no worries, go check out that video. Then come back and join the conversation because we're going to break it all down. I'm so excited to do so. But before we dive into it, as you can see on the screen now, make sure you're following me on all my other social media accounts, which you can find the links in the description below. If you are new to the channel, welcome to this community. Consider subscribing to the channel. And while you all are at it, make sure you hit that notification bell. That way you can get the alert for when I drop new content. It will mean the world to me if you all can like and share this review. It helps out the channel a lot, but I also appreciate all the support. And in those comments down there, let's talk about this first episode. Your pros, your cons. What do you think about Sam and Bucky, learning more about Sam's family, Bucky's nightmares of being a Winter Soldier, and then of course we'll talk theories, right? I know everyone was all up in arms about Mephisto and Nightmare not coming to fruition in WandaVision, but let's still have a great discussion about this show because there's some things to theorize about Isaiah Bradley, Baron Zemo, other organizations, the Flag Smashers, and all that different stuff. Let's have a discussion about it and what you all hope to see in future episodes, and let's have a great time with this show. So before I dive into the breakdown, talk about the scenes, all that different stuff, I will let you all know that we will be back every single Saturday talking about the Falcon and Winter Soldier, just like we did WandaVision with my amazing co-hosts. They're coming back. I got Amanda and Chris coming back to talk about the show, and we will have special guests every single week. And this week, we're going to have Michael coming back, who was a part of the WandaVision discussion. So again, hope to see you all this Saturday, 3 p.m. Central Time, breaking this episode down. If you all watched the WandaVision discussion, we broke it down, and we had such a great time. So I hope to see you all there this Saturday. But as I digress, let's get into this breakdown. Again, I talked about it in my non-spoiler review, my whole thoughts. I love this first pilot episode. It caught us up to Sam and Bucky. We're 6 months after the events of Endgame. You know, we get Sam, who's been working for the Air Force for 6 months. We see Bucky dealing with him being the Winter Soldier, having nightmares. I love this first episode, and we're going to break it all down. As we open up the episode, seeing Sam ironing clothes, preparing for, as the world assumes that Captain America is dead, so he's preparing for this legacy memorial funeral of sorts that we'll talk here about later. But we see him looking at that shield, and we have the incredible voiceover from Cap talking to old Cap, talking to Sam from Endgame regarding the shield, and him saying that the shield feels like it's someone else's, which is a big theme in this episode, and a big theme for the show. But as we kind of move forward, this is what we were all expecting, right? I loved WandaVision, dealing with the grief. We're in the mind of these characters and dealing with all that stuff. But this is the show in regards to, this is going to be action. Now, when I say this show is going to be action, there's more than just meets the eye with the show, which we'll talk a little bit about later. But it's the action that gets me really excited with this first episode. Just knowing that this show feels like a movie. It feels cinematic as we get the first action set piece, which I don't know if you all kind of, maybe I'm making this up, but I love when Sam, he gets out of the aircraft, and it reminded me of Iron Man when he used to jump out of the aircraft, and particularly in the first Avengers film, and of course in his movie. So that was a nice little call back to Iron Man there. At least that's how I took it. But in this first mission here, we see him going against Baron Drock, which we haven't seen him, Captain America Winter Soldier. You know, we got GSP back in the role, and we got a couple other cameos in this particular episode, but I love that we get him back because he's a pretty cool villain, right? He's not a big threat level of villain. He's kind of like a Crossbones in the MCU, so I'm glad that we saw him. But let's talk about that action set piece, which was just, again, the hand-to-hand combat in this first episode reminded me so much of Winter Soldier, which is my top 3 MCU films, reminded me of Civil War, but in particular with Winter Soldier, which has the best fight of the MCU. I said it's my favorite fight in the MCU. Bucky and Cap in the streets fighting for the first time. That scene is perfect. And it didn't remind me of that, but in regards to the tone, the choreography, the way that the camera's positioned, it reminded me of that type of tone in Winter Soldier. And we see Falcon just kicking some ass, man. It was such a cool scene. It's such a great way to open up this show. And again, it lets you know we're in the MCU. Yeah, we're on the small screen. We're in your TV. We're in your home. We're in your living room. But we're still going to give you guys that cinematic feel, which we got from WandaVision and carrying over to Falcon and Winter Soldier, which is, of course, a much different show. But I just loved how we're in the sky fighting. There's gunshots. There's just so much action. I love this action set piece, and it just makes me excited for the continuation of this great action that we're going to get in this show. But this is the quieter moments that I love about the show, right? This is where we sit down. We had the action set piece. Sam saves the guy from the LAF, and we learn a little bit more about the state of the world, which I love about this episode, which speaks to this next scene. we see Sam has been working for the Air Force for 6 months, right? We got to remember, this was something that really got me excited about this show. Sam was a fugitive. He was, solo with Cap and Natasha. They were not a part of the Sokovia Accord. So I love how this show is kind of integrating Sam back into society. He's been working with the government. He has to kind of build himself back up in a sense, right? Same goes with Bucky, who we'll talk about here in a bit. But I love the little quieter moments, and I love the little moment of the world. It's the world building that we're going to get with these shows. We've got it somewhat in the MCU, but we don't get moments like this, right? Where we see the couple come up to Sam and his friend Torres when they say, oh, you're an Avenger. Thank you so much, for bringing my family back. I just love the little details like that, because again, it builds the world. It makes you feel a part of the world. It feels like it's real, even though it's fictional, right? So I love that moment, but it's also in this moment that we learn a little bit about our main villains of this show, right? We learn about the Flag Smashers, which I'll be the first one to tell you. Me growing up, I was more of a Spider-Man, X-Men, MCU reader. I didn't read Iron Man and Captain America. They didn't really appeal to me, so I'm not too familiar with the Flag Smashers, but I did some research, and we'll talk about who they are a little bit later. But we learn in this moment from Torres, who we'll talk about his significance to Captain America and what he was like in the comics. And who's to say, again, this is just a fun conversation. He might not be Torres from the comics, or the Flag Smashers might not have the exact, from page to TV screen, but we'll get into that a little bit later. But as we kind of learn within this scene, the Flag Smashers are an organization that they liked the life when they were during the blip, right? If you're a criminal, if you're an organization that are filled with terrorists, then yeah, you were having a blast during the blip, right? Because half of the Avengers were gone. The world was in decimation. So I love, again, this is what I wanted so much from the show. What does the world look like after Endgame? The ramifications, the economy, which we'll talk about here, people not having jobs, the bad guys having a field day because there's not as many Avengers to take them out. So I love this moment and having this organization liking life without the hero in life during the blip. So I love that little moment. And again, building the world, even though we've been in the MCU for 13 years, but not as much on this grounded level in the mind of citizens and criminals and all that. I'm just so in love with this show. But as we kind of digress and kind of talk a little bit about the Flag Smashers, which in the comics, they went by the terrorist organization by the name of the Underground Liberated Totally Integrated Mobile Army to Unite Mankind, which again, we kind of get that sense from the Flag Smashers. They want the world to go back to what it was in the blip. So I'm really excited to learn more about them, because again, I'm not too familiar with them in the comics, even though they are attached to Captain America's lore. So this is another moment too that I love. It's just a little conversation between Torres and Sam regarding, is the rumors true that Cap, he's in the moon, he's looking down on us, very similar to, what we got with Nick Fury on Sword. And who knows, Cap might be up there with Nick Fury, because I don't think Cap is like dead quite yet, even though we have that funeral and the world think he's gone. But we'll see if Mr. Steve Rogers is somewhere out there. But this is, it's in a scene to me that really shows the charm and the charisma of Anthony Mackie, as I know some people were a little hesitant of him being the lead of his own show and potentially taking on the mantle of Captain America. And I've always been a fan of Anthony Mackie. I've seen him leading movies. I've seen him secondary character. He was Papa Doc when I first met him, and now look at him now. So this episode to me just proved that he's a leading man. He's the next big MCU type of superhero, taking on potentially the mantle of Captain America and the Shield. But I think that this episode has really proved to me, and I hope proved to you, that Anthony Mackie is a star. But as we kind of go back into the episode here in the recap, we see Rhodey. Rhodey makes an appearance in this episode. It was revealed, I don't know if you all remember a couple months ago, that it kind of slipped out. Don Cheadle said that he will be making an appearance in the show. So it wasn't a big surprise for me, because I kind of knew that going into it. But it was still nice to see him in this moment, as we see again this somewhat of a legacy memorial for funeral type of situation going on. But more importantly, we see Sam giving the government the shield. He doesn't want the shield, not only because of the legacy, but there's a history to that shield that we'll talk about a little bit later. But it's in this moment here that we get this really nice scene, because we don't really see don't see Rhodey interacting with Sam right in the movies, because it's like fast paced. We're focusing more on Captain America and Iron Man and the other Avengers, but having them have that conversation about passing the mantle on, and also more importantly, the world's broken. And again, this is what I love about Phase 4, is rebuilding the world at the same time the MCU is rebuilding its catalog of new Avengers, and then characters like Bucky and Sam and Wanda and Vision and And, later on with other shows like Hawkeye and Kate Bishop, we're going to see a lot of these rebuilding of characters that we really didn't spend too much time with, but then also introducing new characters. So this is the stuff that gets me so excited for Phase 4 as we kind of go back to the recap. And again, I mentioned Winter Soldier being top 3, top tier MCU. I think it's one of the best narratives, best hand-to-hand combat. The score is incredible. But Bucky as Winter Soldier is one of my favorite villains in the MCU. And we see a flashback of Bucky having a nightmare sequence. Nightmare, I don't know, is Nightmare in the show? Has a nightmare sequence of him doing an old job, an old mission, again, showing you his elite killing abilities as the Winter Soldier, as the killer machine that he was. But again, he's waking up from this nightmare. He's going to therapy. And I love that the show, again, is diving deeper into these characters. What's the headspace like for Bucky, right? He's getting a second chance, which is another theme about this show. In regards to legacy, in regards to second chances, the government is they're accepting Bucky Barnes into society, but they're going to keep an eye on him, going to therapy, having his little checklist. There's certain tabs they're going to keep on him because, again, who knows? Baron Zemo might switch him back to Winter Soldier, which I hope doesn't happen, but I love the Winter Soldier. I love that sequence there. But again, it's in this scene that we see that he's still doing some, not Winter Soldier stuff, but he still has some things that he has to take care of his conscience. He has to make amends to certain people, right? Which we get that great moment with his friend later in this episode. But we get this awesome sequence of him following a person that he used to work for as a Winter Soldier. He tracks her car and has that whole scene, and he goes in the car, hits the guy, and tells the therapist. I love the cut between the conversation of the therapist and what really happened. I didn't hurt anyone, as he hits the guy and probably breaks his nose with his metal arm from Wakanda. And we see him talk to the lady and say, I'm no longer the Winter Soldier, I'm Bucky Barnes. That scene to me is just shows the fun of the show, the natural comedy, the seriousness nature of the Winter Soldier, because she was probably scared in her mind when she saw him coming in that moment. But I just love that moment. But again, it's in this scene here. We see Bucky. He has his list, very similar to his best friend Steve Rogers in Winter Soldier, who had his little checklist. But I just love that character development, that he has nightmares. He has this weight on his shoulder from all the dead bodies, all the people he's killed, all the wars he's been in, which he mentions here, which I thought was a beautiful moment. Him talking about, for 90 years, I've been fighting. I go from war to war, from Infinity War to Endgame, and now I just want to be free. I just want to be able to have peace and to be free. I love that for Bucky. I love that for him because we really don't see that in the MCU films, having that conversation. So that was just the stuff with Sam and Bucky in this episode, and I'm loving it, guys, as you can see. But going back to the episode, we see that Bucky has a friend, Rory, who he meets every single Wednesday, and he's kind of befriended him, and it's very important why he friends him, which I love this moment that we'll talk about here in a bit. But cut back to Sam going to Louisiana, meeting up with his sister Sarah, who this is the first time we've met her, and meets his nephews, and I just love the normalcy of this scene, and them just being, they saved the world, but this reminds me of Age of Ultron when we see the Avengers sitting down at the table picking up Thor's hammer. It's just like the smaller, quieter moments of fighting Thanos, but then having a conversation with your sister, seeing your nephews for the first time, since coming back from the blip or 6 months after the blip. So I love just the normalcy of these superheroes. And then just in this scene, the family stuff going on, the family drama going on, the family business that hasn't been doing well, and the money situation. This is just like, this is character development. This is stakes, because we know eventually Baron Zemo is going to probably use Sarah and those nephews, or Flag Smashers are going to use them to get what they want from Sam, or to, whatever the case may be later on in the episode or in the season. But I just love the family dynamic and seeing him with his sisters and the family stuff that's going on, and also the importance of legacy for Sam in regards to his dad and the family business and having half the house and half of the boat. This is great character development there. As we cut back to Bucky on a date, as he talks about he's been using dating apps and it hasn't been the best experience for him, which I love. This, again, the subtlety of the comedy in this episode was just fantastic. It wasn't over the top. Some MCU stuff is like a little bit too on the nose with the jokes, but this was just a subtle comedy and just a conversation, which I love, right? So we get into this moment here as the young lady that he's on a date with talks about him befriending Rory and what it means for him, especially since Rory lost his son and the circumstances for his son being lost. was, unknown to Rory, but we know, and this is a great reveal, he goes back to Rory's house and he sees the picture, and we now, as the audience, we know, oh, this is why he goes on to take him out every Wednesday. His name is in that book. He has to make amends. He has to confront his old demons in his past. That reveal was so great because he killed his son in the flashback that we got earlier in the episode. Great tie around. As we wrap up the episode, we're in Switzerland, which happens to be comic accurate in regards to the origins of the Flag Smashers. As I looked up in my research, we see Sam's friend Torres has been tracking the Flag Smashers, and he, try to blends in with them. We see the whole heist thing that they got going on, and then we see the Flag Smashers again. I'm not too familiar with them. We see them in action. They seem to me to be super soldiers. I don't know if there's a serum out there. Someone's releasing it on the black market. And again, the 5 years of the blip, Baron Zemo and all that stuff. But they're very strong individuals as we see them taking out the cops and beating the hell out of Torres. Wrapping up the episode, though, another great moment. We see Sam going to the bank with his sister. He gets recognized by the loan officer. He's a fan of the Avengers and all that stuff. I love that Sam's using his Avenger status to try to get this loan, which is great, which is such a great character moment and a great, for me, being a big MCU fan and put it in the real world. How the hell do the Avengers get food? How do they get their bills paid? How do they get paid in general? They bring that up in the show, which I love. And also we get the Tony Stark reference, which was really nice in regards to RIP to Tony. But it's in this moment in regards to, they get goodwill. There's people that donate to have the Avengers get paid. But this is the great stuff. This is the economics. The guy doesn't give them a loan, as he mentions that, the world's been broken. The economy has been broken. And now all these people, the trillions of people that were gone, the billions of people that were gone, they're now back. So the economy's messed up. And this is, again, the world building, the stuff that I was so looking forward to in this show. So they don't give them a loan. But there's a little bit of undertone that was going on without getting a loan. And I love that this show is going to be tackling race in the MCU. We're going to be tackling discrimination in the MCU. We've seen that in Black Panther. We really haven't seen it elsewhere in the MCU. And this is what gets me excited about the potentiality of an Isaiah Bradley, the very first Black Captain America, Sam Wilson being the first African American in the comics, and how they're going to explore that in this show. Gives me so excited for the show. And I love this scene here. Again, we see Sam refuses to give up on his family legacy, paralleling to him giving up the shield because it's not his legacy, it's Cap's legacy. At least that's what he thinks until we meet Isaiah Bradley. Look up Isaiah Bradley. You'll see who this character is, and I can't wait to see that get tied into the mix. But as we kind of wrap up the episode, Sam sees the Flag Smashers in action, and the world needs a new hero hired by the government, and we see the new Captain America, aka U.S. Agent, played by Wyatt Russell. End of the episode, a fantastic episode. Again, the drama, the tone, the choreography of the fighting sequences, the character development of Sam and Bucky, the world, what does it look like after the ramifications of Endgame, the racial stuff going on with the discrimination, the family being involved, Baron Zemo still out there, Sharon Carter still out there, Flag Smashers is someone to look forward to. I'm beyond excited for this show. So glad that we don't have to wait, a whole year between MCU projects. We went from Wanda, which I enjoyed, and now we're in Falcon and Winter Soldier, which are two different shows tackling two different things in regards to Wanda dealing with grief and things of that nature and facing your grief and your trauma. This show diving into second chances for Bucky, a first Black Captain America, the ramifications of Endgame, the economy of Endgame, the politics, the laws, and all that stuff. I'm so excited to be back in the MCU. And again, ladies and gentlemen, we will be back every single Saturday talking about the show, which, by the way, before I wrap this up, I mentioned Torres earlier, who in the comics was an actual, a hybrid between a real bird and a man. So I don't know if this is going to take place in the show, because I think Torres is going to be a very big character in this show, as he seems to be in the comics. So that's something to keep an eye out for. But again, we're going to dive deeper into conversations like that this Saturday, 3 p.m. Central Time. Myself, Amanda, Chris, and Michael, we're going to have a great time. Hope you all can join us. Hope you all enjoyed this review. Make sure to like the video, share the video, leave your thoughts in the comments. What did you like? What did you didn't like about the show? What do you hope to see in the show? And let's talk about it all. Thank you all again. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We'll see you tomorrow on the spoiler discussion live stream at 3 p.m. Hope you all are staying safe. We'll see you tomorrow.